My voice trembles in the static, even as I force it steady. Attaché Severin Cole, recording at 312 local. Initial descent to designate Helix Null begins. No atmospheric anomalies, yet the desert outside our lander is colorless, a skin of ash under a sky the color of oxidized copper. Auspex displays flicker, alternately blank and flooded with green ciphers no Lex mechanic recognizes. We were told the world died before the Great Crusade and left to drift through its own gravity tomb. Dead worlds do not pulse, yet below us, faint power signatures rise like whispers of breath from a corpse. Inside the lander, the Astra Militarum detail sits silent. Helmets in laps, hands clasped around lasrafals like devotional candles. Even their sergeant, Vaith, mouths a prayer instead of a command. The Mechanicus Magos clicks Binharic streams into a brass reliquary, trying to coax the Auspex into sense. None of us mention the readings aloud. When the hatch hisses open, the impossible reveals itself. The surface temperature outside is the same as the void between stars. Absolute, murdering cold. Yet the air on our faces is merely chill, breathable, scented faintly of copper dust. Frost crunches under our boots, but no steam leaves our mouths. I touch my exposed skin, expecting it to crack. It does not. I speak for the Vox again, voice lower. Environment in violation of standard thermodynamics. Air composition stable. Breathing without suits. The words feel like heresy. We move out. The desert rolls in waves of stone dust and brittle black glass. In the distance, dunes shift as though stirred from beneath. The Magos holds his staff high, emitter clicking. The Auspex pulse quickens, a rhythm of 3 beats, pause, 3 beats, pause. Vaith signals an advance wedge without looking back at me. Half a click from the lander we find the fracture. No ordinary cave mouth, but a fault in the planet's crust shaped like a wound. The edges are smooth, fused. Inside, darkness glows faintly green, as if something alive exhales light. We descend single file. The walls tighten, pressing close. Black stone slick as wet bone slopes downward, etched with lines too fine for human chisels. I trail my fingers along one. It hums at the same rhythm as the Auspex. Further in, the ceiling arches high, ribbed like a cathedral inverted underground. Lines of light trace downward like veins carrying green fire. I try to focus on the tactical readouts, but my breath keeps sinking with the pulse. 3 inhalations. 1 held silence. I stop, force myself to breathe irregularly. Vaith mutters a catechism. The squad echoes. Their voices bounce off the walls but return with a delay, like hearing yourself across a vox with lag. The Magos speaks Binharic into the stone, and the stone answers back with a hiss. At 50 meters down, the corridor opens onto a terrace. Below stretches a vast chamber cut from the planet's heart. Columns rise like frozen lightning. The floor glitters, with black dust that flows away from our boots in small streams, as if avoiding contact. The Auspex unit in my gauntlet flickers through half a dozen Imperial seals, then locks onto a single biometric display. Heartbeat detected. Location, substrate, origin, planetary mass. Pulse, strength, escalating. I look up. The columns seem taller than before. The green light dims, then brightens. A slow inhalation. Sergeant, I whisper. The rock is alive. No one answers. The squad stands frozen, Lazarafals raised but shaking. The Magos drops to one knee, Cogskull tilting in what might be reverence or terror. The pulse quickens again. 3 beats, pause, 3 beats, pause. And now I feel it through the soles of my boots like the bass of a distant drum. The Voxlog's rune blinks red for overload. Attaché Cal, Halix Null Descent, I say into the static. My own voice sounds far away. We are inside a structure beneath the crust, stone or something older. Auspex reads a planetary heartbeat. Repeat, the planet's rock is beating. The ground shudders once, soft as a sigh, and the green veins flare. Above us, the fracture seals itself with a hiss of frost. Our way out is gone. The corridor breathes with us now, or at least that is how it feels. My Auspex shows a straight tunnel 23 meters long, but my eyes measure twice that distance, then half. We march in staggered file, Sergeant Vaith still trying to bark orders, but his voice has thinned. Every command emerges one tone lower than the last, like a recording decaying. The Militarum troopers whisper litanies under their breath instead of call signs. Their formation bends around me like a failing orbit. I note each deviation for the record, even as my own pulse matches the echoing 3-beat pattern through the soles of my boots. The Magos walks ahead, mechadendrites skimming the walls, brass fingers tapping out Binharik test phrases. Every reply from the stone returns corrupted, whole strings of machine cant inverted, syllables rearranged into geometries of noise. 3 pulses of static precede each response, as if the tomb speaks only after knocking. We sweep the same intersection 3 times. On the Auspex, the turns map clean, unchanging. On the ground, the walls shift subtly, edges bending like heated metal. We leave a glow stick to mark our path. 2 minutes later, we return and find it embedded in the ceiling, dripping light like sap. No one remarks on it. Vaith just signals another advance wedge, knuckles white around his last pistol. The trooper's eyes flick toward me as though my inquisitorial seal should halt this unraveling. It does not. The air thickens. Breathing tastes of iron filings. Temperature drops, then spikes. I record each shift automatically, but my hand trembles on the data slate. In the green-lit gloom, we find the first remains, human bones arranged neatly along a ledge like offerings. Every femur etched with glyphs that glow faintly then. Fade, I run a finger over one. It feels soft, as though the bone still remembers flesh. The Magos hisses a warning, Binharik streaming faster, but his Vox speaker lags 3 seconds behind his mouth. A trooper mutters, "This is older than us." Another adds, "Older than anything." Their last muzzle drifts downward. I see the fray taking hold, discipline slipping from a line of drilled soldiers into a scatter of frightened pilgrims. Vaith slams his gauntlet against a rib of black stone and intones the primer's battlefield litany, but the echo returns in a voice not his own. 3 pulses, 1 silence. 3 pulses, 1 silence. The Magos lifts a relic antenna and opens a link to the orbital ship. His translator shrieks and dies. From its speakers pours a hiss of binary frost, 3 bursts, then static. The Vox rune on my wrist flares red with an unreadable sigil. I log the event as communications compromised, but know it is more. The tomb has begun to speak in our tongue. We press deeper. The corridor widens, then narrows, like breathing lungs. Our Auspex maps draw a perfect rectangle, but our boots crunch across spirals. The light grows stronger ahead, a wet green like algae under glass. Shadows of figures flicker across the walls, our shapes but taller, stretched, wearing masks of metal. I blink and the images vanish. Another chamber opens, a nave of stone ribs arching high, floor a mosaic of black metal plates, carved with concentric circles. At its center lies a shape like a sarcophagus, but massive, as long as a Baneblade tank, forged from steel dark as frozen oil. Cables run from it into the walls like veins into a heart. The glyphs on the bones we carried with us shimmer and pulse in response, as though sensing home. The Magos approaches, mechadendrites raised in benediction, whispering a catechism of shut-down commands. His words fall into static before leaving his lips. 3 pulses, 1 silence. The soldiers form a loose perimeter, rifles wavering. I record, unknown artifact, size, approximately 14 meters. Material, ferric composite. Energy signature, dormant but rising. My breath frosts, though the air remains warm. I step closer. My Auspex flashes through a sequence of Imperial seals, then blanks. Heartbeat detected, substrate, planetary mass escalating. Now a second line appears. Containment breach in progress. A thin seam appears down the sarcophagus's center. Green frost curls outward, a breath exhaled from the gap. The temperature plummets in an instant. Troopers gasp. Their exhalations crystallize mid-air. The Magos recoils, mechadendrites snapping like whips. Vaith raises his las pistol, but his hands shake too hard to aim. The slit widens another finger's breadth, and a sound leaks out. Not a hiss, but a chord, low and resonant, vibrating through my teeth. 3 pulses, 1 silence. 3 pulses, 1 silence. My vox log spikes into unreadable glyphs, recording the noise as text older than the Imperium. I find my voice. Attaché cal, Halix null internal structure. We have located a sarcophagus of non-imperial design. It is opening. Repeat. It is opening. The gap exhales again, heavier this time, and frost creeps across the mosaic floor toward our boots like a living tide. Behind us the corridor seals, black stone knitting, shut with a sound like bones grinding. Our exit gone, our formation broken. Only the green glow of the slit remains, pulsing like a heartbeat we have been following since descent. Somewhere in the static, I hear my own voice answering me, delayed by 3 beats. Then the slit gapes wider, and the breath that spills out smells of old stars. The sound that escapes the sarcophagus still lingers in the air like a chord struck on some hidden organ. Every surface seems to vibrate with it. My teeth ache. The Magos straightens slowly, robes stiff with frost, and begins a canticle of protection. His vox speaker hisses binharic syllables, but each phrase returns bent, vowels reversed, consonants swallowed. The second verse emerges not as words, but as a lattice of tones, a pattern of 3 pulses and 1 blank pause, as if the tomb mocks his liturgy. He tries again, louder, and the reply comes faster, overlapping his own voice until prayer and echo become indistinguishable. I feel the pattern on my tongue, metallic, like licking a battery. The troopers huddle around their lasrifles as if warmth could be coaxed from them. Their breath forms weak plumes, even though the air should not be cold. Temperature reports scroll across my auspex, dropping steadily, but still showing 12 degrees Celsius, an impossible contradiction. The skin on my hands feels as though it belongs to someone else. In the center of the chamber, beside the sarcophagus, lies a black obelisk half buried in mosaic tiles. Its surface drinks the green light instead of reflecting it. The Magos gestures, mechadendrites snaking toward it, but they retract at first contact as if shocked. He whispers a diagnostic prayer. No return. I step closer. The obelisk hums at a slow heartbeat tempo. 3 pulses, pause, 3 pulses, pause, vibrating faintly under my boots. The taste of iron grows stronger with every beat, coating the back of my throat. I log the artifact automatically, but words on my slate deform even as I type, curling into glyphs I don't recognize. Behind me the troopers shift uneasily, armor creaking like old timber. Their formation has dissolved entirely. No one looks to Vaith for orders now. Shadows swim between the green lights. At first I think they're tricks of the eye, after images from the sarcophagus flare, but then one crosses directly in front of a trooper, and his shadow splits, 2 silhouettes diverging, neither matching his movement. My auspex remains blank, no motion detected, no life signs, yet my peripheral vision catches tall figures sliding just outside the glow, their edges fractal, never quite whole. I blink, and the corridor behind us is different again, ribs twisting inward like a throat. My breath synchronizes with the pulse before I can stop it. 3 inhalations, 1 held silence. My chest aches from forcing an irregular rhythm. The Magos lifts his staff high, activating a lumen flare. For a heartbeat, the green shadows recede, and I glimpse the obelisk's carvings. Thin, concentric rings, each etched with script older than anything in the Mechanicus archives. They seem to shift as I watch, rearranging into imperial Gothic letters that almost spell my name, then dissolve back into sigils. The Magos begins a third canticle, but his voice fractures mid-verse, split between two tones, one human, one machine. He jerks as if struck, mechadendrites convulsing, then steadies, finishing the prayer in a whisper not his own. When he looks up, his ocular lenses glow a shade deeper, almost emerald. I move to his side and press my gauntlet against the obelisk. The vibration enters my bones. For a moment I feel the memory of cold stars, as if something inside the stone opens a window. My mind reels. I stagger back. The troopers mutter, some removing their helmets to wipe sweat from suddenly pale faces despite the frost at our feet. Vaith tries to issue a command, but the vox in his throat clicks 3 times. Silent. 3 times. Silent. I thumb the transmit rune on my wrist. The Auspex squeals, then opens a channel to orbit. Attaché Kal, I begin, but my words repeat 3 beats later in a voice not mine. On the feed I hear a new report, short, clipped, bureaucratic, but the accent is wrong. Extraction sequence in progress, it says. Lander sealed. External dunes shifting, I demand clarification. Static 3 pulses. Then another voice cuts in, breathless. Your craft is being buried. The transmission dies. The obelisk hums louder now, matching the surge of my heart. The taste of iron floods my mouth until I swallow and feel grit between my teeth. The green light gutters. Shadows deepen. My Auspex shows temperature rising, not falling, yet frost creeps up the sarcophagus cables like ivy. A trooper drops to his knees, muttering a child's prayer. Another stares at the obelisk, as though hearing a lullaby. Vaith turns in a slow circle, weapon lowered, eyes unfocused. I record each detail because it's the only thing anchoring me to self. A tremor runs through the floor, subtle at first, then stronger, like a distant drum. Dust sifts from the ceiling ribs, landing on my visor in tiny cold sparks. The Magos begins a 4th canticle, but only static emerges. 3 bursts, 1 gap, 3 bursts, 1 gap, until his vox clicks off entirely. He tilts his head as though listening to a far voice. His mechadendrites stretch toward the obelisk again, trembling. I try the orbital link once more. The feed flickers to life for a single moment, grainy picked feed from the lander above. I see its hatch sealed shut, hull vibrating under invisible pressure. Dunes crawling over it like slow ocean waves. Each wave leaves behind more ash, swallowing the landing struts. Data tags flash across the screen. Mass increasing, oxygen declining. Then the image distorts, tearing into green static. The vox rune on my wrist dies. No connection. Extraction lost. I lower my arm and realize my breath has stopped. The entire chamber holds its inhalation with me. Only the heartbeat hum of the obelisk remains, steady and patient. 3 pulses. Pause. 3 pulses. Pause. The sarcophagus does not move, but frost hisses from the seam in tiny gusts, rolling across the floor toward our boots. The shadows in the green light seem closer now, almost touching. Somewhere in the static, my own voice whispers coordinates I have never seen before. The last line of my log before it cuts out is automatic, typed by hands I do not feel. We are sealed inside. The lander is gone. We move on because there is no choice. The lander is gone, the channel dead, and the corridor behind us sealed like a scar. The Magos walks first, mechadendrites splayed wide like antennae feeling for a path. His footfalls make almost no sound now. Each step lands, but the echo lags behind, arriving a heartbeat late, as though the air has grown viscous. My Auspex still shows normal readings, but the little pictogram of our squad drifts upward on the map, as if gravity has lessened. The troopers feel it too. They lean forward to keep balance, boots squeaking against black stone slick with frost. One drops a spare charge pack and it rises slightly before settling to the floor like a feather. The corridor breathes narrower and wider in slow pulses. We mark each turn, but our marks slide along the wall or fade into the green glow. The taste of iron persists in the back of my throat, now laced with something sweeter, like ozone before a storm. My tongue feels heavy. My ears ring. The Magos mutters fragments of machine cant under his breath, splicing them with imperial litanies in a tone halfway between prayer and code. He pauses at junctions, scraping the walls with a rune-etched stylus, reading the sparks that jump from stone to metal. The passage opens into a gallery. At first, I think it a sculpture hall, ranks of statues lining either side. But as my eyes adjust, I see they are not statues at all. Skeletal machine forms mid-stride, each taller than a man, caught in a posture of movement. A claw extended, a blade half raised, a mouthless face angled as if listening. Their surfaces are dull, mottled metal that drinks the light. Their spines are lattices of ribs like broken xylophones. Thin chains hang from the ceiling above them, swaying although no breeze stirs. We fan out automatically, weapons raised. The echo of our footfalls takes 2 beats to arrive, a ghost of movement. Vaith's orders come as whispers, each word lagging behind his lips. A trooper bumps one of the machine forms with a shoulder. The impact rings like a bell, yet the form does not shift. I record details. Number, unknown. At least 60 in visible range. Configuration reminiscent of Necron warrior chassis, but thinner, less complete, as though mid-emergence. The Magos approaches a plinth at the center of the hall, where a larger figure looms, half embedded in the wall. Its chest cavity glows faintly green, a caged heartbeat. He draws his staff across a line of glyphs at its base. Sparks jump, green, then white. His Vox speaker clicks once, twice, 3 times, then outputs a phrase in perfect High Gothic, though his lips do not move. Those who watch are already awake. The words crawl across my Auspex screen in the same moment, replacing my sensor readouts. My stomach knots. I step back. The troopers shift uneasily, eyes flicking between the frozen figures. One mutters a prayer, but the syllables run backward out of his mouth. The gravity lightens further. Loose dust drifts upward in slow spirals. Our boots make muted thumps as if we're walking on thick cloth. My heart races. I force my breathing off the 3-beat rhythm, but the chamber itself seems to pulse in time. Green lumens along the walls flicker, dim, brighten. The statues stand unmoving, yet every sense tells me we're being watched. The Magos repeats the glyph translation, voice rough now, and adds Binharic overlays to probe the meaning. His mechadendrites tremble, as if under current. Already awake, he whispers in his own voice. Already awake. He begins to inscribe a containment rune on the floor, but his stylus leaves no mark. He tries again, pressing harder. The stone flexes like skin under the tip, then heals itself. A trooper reaches out to steady himself against one of the machine forms. For a moment, nothing happens. Then the finger he touches twitches. Barely, a convulsion no larger than a tremor, but enough to freeze us all. The trooper snatches his hand back, eyes wide. His Lazrafal rises, trembling. No one breathes. I log the motion, fingers numb. Auspex still shows 0 movement, 0 life signs, but the green heartbeat in the central plinth speeds up. The echo of our last step arrives late, louder than it should be, as if something else is stepping with us. Chains above the statues sway harder, links clicking a slow rhythm. My tongue tastes of rust and ozone. My visor fogs from inside, though the air is freezing. Shadows in the corners stretch longer, slanting toward us like claws. I glance at the Magos. His ocular lenses flare brighter. He croaks. They are! But the rest is swallowed by a sudden silence. Every lumen along the hall dims at once, green light shrinking to pinpoints. The echo stops. The only sound left is a low-frequency hum rising from the floor, vibrating up through our boots, a sound below hearing but heavy enough to make my vision blur. It spreads outward, through the gallery, into the corridors beyond. I feel it in my chest like a second heartbeat trying to sync with mine. The hum deepens. Frost bursts from the seams of the walls in delicate veins. The statues do not move again, yet the air between them thickens, as if shapes are forming from nothing. My auspex flashes unreadable glyphs, then goes dark. Vaith's mouth moves, but no words emerge. All of us stand suspended in the dim green glow, shadows stretching and curling at our feet. In the distance, deeper within the complex, something enormous shifts. Stone grinding on stone, timed perfectly to the 3-pulse rhythm we've been hearing since descent. My Vox rune lights briefly, a ghost signal from orbit, then dies. Only the hum remains, swelling until it feels like it could break our bones from within. Somewhere behind us, a chain snaps and falls without sound. The green lumens gutter once more, and darkness flows in like liquid. We do not move. We cannot. The low-frequency hum has become the chamber's breath. I taste iron and ash. One of the machine forms tilts its head a fraction of a degree, and though the auspex reads nothing, I know it is looking at me. We flee the humming hall without realizing we've begun to run. The statues behind us do not follow, yet the vibration of their gaze travels in our spines. The corridor spills us into a new chamber, a mouth of black metal ribs curving inward. At first I think the walls are polished smooth, but when my light catches them, they bloom into mirrored planes so dark they seem liquid. Each surface holds a version of us, but not quite ours. My visor displays a mild warp field warning. The auspex scrolls nonsense coordinates. Sergeant Vaith mutters for a perimeter, but his voice sounds doubled, like two men speaking the same words out of sync. The mirrors fracture sight and sound. The troopers appear older in some panels, younger in others. One's reflection shows his left arm gone below the elbow, even as his real arm grips a las rifle. Another's mirrored face is a skull wrapped in green circuitry. I catch myself staring at my own image. For an instant it is not me at all, but some pale thing in inquisitorial black with a mechanical eye and no mouth. I blink, and the image steadies, but a faint smear of green light runs down the reflection like a tear. My stomach lurches. I record visual distortion, but the words on my slate bend sideways, scrolling upward instead of down. Telemetry from my auspex shows timestamps leaping forward and back. The corridor length flickers between numbers. Our internal chronometers lose seconds, then gain them. The troopers shuffle nervously, trying not to look at the walls. Their footsteps echo twice. First a faint click as the boots touch, then a louder one 3 heartbeats later, deeper and out of tune. Vaith orders them to maintain formation, but the reflections show no formation at all, only a scattered mob of strangers. We advance through the labyrinth. Each turn opens onto more mirrored black metal, some panels convex, others concave, bending our shapes. The green lumens overhead flicker, stretching shadows across the reflections like cracks in glass. The taste of iron returns to my tongue, stronger than before, mixed with a sweetness like memory. I touch my helmet to adjust the vox, and a flash sears my mind, a memory of kneeling before a throne of bone and metal, offering my own name as tithe. It is not a memory I possess. I shake my head, but the image lingers, a film burned into my thoughts. The Magos moves at a steady pace, mechadendrites brushing the mirrors as though reading them. His lenses pulse with faint code. He murmurs a low binharic sequence, trying to anchor the squad with cadence. 3 pulses, 1 silence, he says, voice toneless. The vox on my wrist hisses and overlays the same phrase in high Gothic, soft and rhythmic. 3 pulses, 1 silence. It repeats like a lullaby. The troopers flinch at each iteration, their eyes glancing to the mirrors where their reflections mouth the words before they speak. I try the orbital link again. Static answers, but within it, a whisper. 3 pulses, 1 silence. It sounds like my own voice, but older, weary, mechanical. The auspex flickers, showing glimpses of coordinates deep within the planet's crust, then nothing. My pulse beats in time with the phrase despite my efforts. I bite my tongue to break the rhythm and taste blood. We reach a junction where the labyrinth splits into 3 identical corridors. Vaith signals left. His reflection in the center corridor turns right. The Magos calculates probabilities, murmuring numbers that do not exist. I choose the left with Vaith, but as we step forward, the mirrors flare green, and for a heartbeat, I stand alone in a desert of black glass under a dead sun. My breath fogs though the air is warm. Then the vision fades and I am back among the squad, but my knees tremble. Another flash. I see myself decades older, mechanical limbs replacing flesh, standing beside the Magos, not as an attaché, but as something else entirely. The image leaves behind a whisper. Containment requires conversion. The troopers whisper prayers under their breath. Their reflected selves do not pray. Some smile, some snarl. One reflection presses its face against the inside of the glass, palms out, as though trying to escape. The soldier it mimics stumbles backward, weapon raised. The sound of his breathing echoes before he inhales. I log everything, my slate filling with glyphs I cannot read. My hand moves on its own, writing the phrase, 3 pulses, 1 silence, over and over. We continue deeper. The corridor bends into a spiral lined with mirrors on floor and ceiling as well as walls, reflections multiplied into infinity. Each step feels lighter. Dust floats upward from our boots. Vaith's orders lag further behind his lips until he stops speaking altogether. The Magos hisses, mechadendrites coiling. He reads a string of glyphs etched into one mirror. Temporal displacement, he mutters. Observation loops. His lenses flare brighter. We are being measured. A fresh pulse of static bursts from my vox. 3 sharp beats and a gap, then a voice. Severin Cal, you have walked this path before. It cuts out before I can answer. My heart stutters. My reflection in the nearest panel smiles, though I do not. Its eyes glow green. We reach another intersection. The mirrors show us but rearranged, order reversed, weapons in different hands. I glance at Vaith and see his mirrored self step forward even though he stands still. The green light dims slightly, like a breath drawn inward. Shadows lengthen across the floor. Then I see it. Ahead, down a reflected corridor, the squad marches without me. Every soldier present, their mirrored selves distorted, but no image of me at all. In the real corridor, I stand among them. In the reflection, I am gone. My stomach drops. I move closer to the mirror. The reflected Vaith glances back, searching for someone. His mouth moves in slow syllables I cannot hear. The Magos' mirrored form raises a mechadendrite toward empty space, as if reaching for an absence. The corridor around us vibrates softly, a low hum building beneath the phrase on the vox. 3 pulses, 1 silence. 3 pulses, 1 silence. The green lumens flicker again and shadows pool at our feet. My auspex goes black. Only the reflection remains, our squad without me, marching on into a deeper maze I cannot see. The labyrinth squeezes us into a throat of black metal, mirrors fading into seamless walls. The green glow dulls to a sickly phosphor. We move slower now, each step lighter than the last, gravity unreliable, echoes lagging 3 heartbeats behind. Cold air curls along the floor, tasting of burnt copper, sticking to my tongue until it feels like a coin dissolving. The troopers' breaths rasp louder than their boots. My auspex shows nothing but a blank screen pulsing faintly with the phrase 3 pulses, 1 silence. Private Hearn stumbles, clutching his arm. At first I think frostbite, but then I see the veins on his forearm, etching themselves into glyphs of green fire, each line replicating the Necron script we saw on the bones. The glow pulses with the heartbeat tempo. His skin bulges as though something inside is writing from beneath. He gasps a prayer, but the words come out reversed. The Magos hisses Binharik, scanning with a mechadendrite. The probe passes straight through Hearn's flesh, as if through mist, emerging dry and clean on the other side. No wound, no blood. Hearn stares at the hole in his sleeve, trembling. We form a ring without orders. The taste of copper intensifies, like hot wires on the tongue. The corridor holds its breath after every third heartbeat. Between pulses, all sound dies, leaving a silence so dense it feels physical. Hearn's eyes roll white, then snap back glowing faint green. His voice emerges flat and layered, 2 tones at once. "Containment incomplete," he says. 3 pulses, 1 silence. The Magos moves quickly, mechadendrites unfurling a reliquary of silver, charms and hexagrammatic seals. He begins an exorcism of data spirits, intoning a canticle of purging. Each verse breaks halfway, syllables scattering into static. The seals hiss and crack. He presses a cogwheel talisman to Hearn's chest, but it sinks through like into smoke, vanishing. He tries again, louder, Binharik spilling like code ash, but his mechadendrites twitch and shudder. One brushes the corridor wall and sticks fast, metal fusing to black stone. He jerks, trying to pull free, but more limbs adhere, welding to unseen circuits. His lenses flare, flicker, flare again. I step forward, but a gust of copper-cold air pushes me back. My slate records automatically, letters twisting into glyphs as they appear. The other troopers back away from Hearn, weapons shaking but no one firing. His veins glow brighter, script crawling up his neck like luminous ivy. He straightens slowly, breathing in time with the pulse. Silence. Pulse. Silence. The Magos chants desperately, half his limbs fused to the wall, the others still writing containment runes in the air. Sparks drip from the junction like green rain. His voice fractures into 2 registers, one human, one machine, until the machine tone wins. He freezes, still upright, mechadendrites taut, a statue of steel and flesh humming with faint code. Hearn looks at him with an expression almost tender. His lips move, but the voice comes from the walls. Protocol breached. Passage authorized. The corridor responds with a low tremor. Dust falls upward. Frost veins etch across the floor toward Hearn's boots, but stop short, curling like grasping fingers. I try the vox again. Static 3 pulses. 1 silence. A whisper of my own voice. He will open the way. The green glow brightens for a moment, then dims, shadows deepening around us. Vaith raises his las pistol, but lowers it again. His reflection in the wall shows him firing, but here he stands, frozen. Hearn takes a step forward. His boots make no sound. The silence after the 3rd heartbeat lengthens, swallowing even the hum. Ahead, the corridor terminates in a sealed vault, an immense slab of black metal etched with the same script now burning in his veins. We have passed it before. It was seamless, unbroken. Now a faint seam glows. He walks calmly, movements precise, head slightly tilted as if listening to a call no one else can hear. The glow in his veins synchronizes with the seam. The glyphs on the door ripple, rearranging. Frost bursts outward, hissing. The vault sighs, a sound like stone releasing 1,000 years of breath. I reach out, but my arm feels weightless, too slow. Hearn, I call. My voice returns to me reversed. The silence thickens. He does not turn. The glyphs on his neck flare once, bright as lightning. And the vault opens a finger's breadth, green light spilling out. He steps across the threshold. The gap widens for him alone. Cold air pours into the corridor, tasting of burnt copper and ashes of memory. Shadows press, back, parting to let him pass. Beyond the seam is only darkness streaked with slow green sparks like falling stars. Hearn disappears inside. The vault closes behind him without a sound. My auspex flickers once, shows his life sign deeper than the planet's crust, then goes black. The corridor exhales. The silence after the 3rd heartbeat stretches until it feels endless. The glyphs on the vault fade, leaving only smooth black metal. We are left staring at it, our breaths caught, the Magos frozen to the wall, and the pulse beneath our feet resuming its slow, patient rhythm. The vault swallows us like a closing throat. When the seam seals behind Hearn, the air grows heavier, and yet weightless at the same time. The Magos still stands fused to the corridor wall behind, mechadendrites taut as frozen serpents, humming faintly. We cannot pry him loose. Vaith tries once, gloves slipping on slick metal, then orders the remaining troopers forward with a look that says he knows the order means nothing. They obey anyway, because the only thing worse than going on is staying behind. We step through the seam. Hearn entered a heartbeat earlier, expecting to find him in darkness. Instead, the world changes. The chamber beyond is colossal. No ceiling, no floor in any normal sense. Every few steps, the pull of gravity swivels, drawing us toward a wall or an angled plane that becomes the new ground beneath our boots. The green luminescence rises from seams like veins in black stone and also from above. But above shifts each time we blink. Columns rise sideways, then downward, then outward, folding into one another in impossible geometry, a maze designed by an alien logic that regards orientation as optional. My stomach flips with each turn. Dust floats around us like slow snow. Our footfalls echo delayed and stretched, returning as overlapping chords of sound rather than single beats. Vaith keeps one hand on the wall to steady himself, muttering orders that fall apart in the lag. The troopers drift into staggered formation, boots clanging against surfaces that tilt beneath them. My Auspex's spirit squeals and dies. The screen shows us as icons scattered across a rotating cube of coordinates, arrows pointing in all directions at once. The phrase 3 pulses, 1 silence scrolls across the top automatically, a mantra without source. I taste copper on my tongue again, now with an edge of static like chewing foil. My breath wants to fall into the rhythm, but I force irregularity until my chest aches. We emerge onto what might be a floor or a ceiling. Before us stretch rows of canopic stasis crypts, hundreds, maybe thousands, arranged in concentric arcs following the chamber's shifting planes. Each crypt is shaped like a sarcophagus, but elongated, ribbed with metal bands, transparent panels showing what lies inside. The green light flickers across their surfaces, revealing forms curled or contorted within, hybrids of flesh and unknown metal, human. Limbs grafted to skeletal frameworks, faces half smooth skin, half machine masks. Some look almost imperial, others alien beyond category. Condensation beads on the inside of their panels, sliding upward or sideways, depending on which way gravity currently tilts. The troopers whisper prayers. One makes the sign of the Aquila, hands trembling. His reflection in a nearby panel makes a different gesture, a glyph I do not recognize. I walk closer to one crypt. The being within has the torso of a man, but a spine of segmented bronze, its skull elongated, mouth sewn shut, eyes replaced by green-lit lenses. Runes pulse faintly along the metal bands binding it. My stomach churns. I recognize fragments of these runes from Mechanicus archives on biotransference, the Necron process of discarding flesh for eternity. But the sequence here is different, broken, as if a rehearsal abandoned. The Magos's voice drifts from behind us. He is still fused to the corridor, but some part of him projects here, a thin shimmer of data ghost standing at my shoulder. His lenses glow brighter, twin emeralds. He speaks in a low rasp. Precursor attempts. Ascension without contract. Halfway forms his ghostly mechadendrites gesture at the rows of crypts. They tried to rise without the bargain and were left between. His tone carries no triumph, only awe. The Silent King watched. I shiver. The chamber pulses with a low subsonic hum, softer than in the gallery but deeper, a heartbeat through stone. The troopers edge backward from the crypts, but gravity tilts and they stumble forward instead, boots clanging. Frost forms underfoot in patterns of concentric circles echoing the crypt's arrangement. Vaith raises his laspistol, but the muzzle droops as if weighed down by the air. He looks at me for instruction, his eyes hollow. I move closer to another crypt. The being inside stirs, not movement exactly, but a shift of condensation, as though it has just exhaled. My vox clicks 3 times. Silence. Then a whisper, my own voice again, but older. Containment breached. I step back, heart racing. The troopers cluster, rifles wavering between targets they cannot name. The taste of copper fills the chamber like incense, thick enough to smell now, metallic and sweet. After every third heartbeat, all sound dies, leaving only the green glow and our ragged breathing. We push deeper between the rows, hoping for an exit. Orientation becomes meaningless. The crypts rise like pillars, stretch like bridges, some upside down, some sideways. My auspex shows timestamps jumping, 2 minutes ahead, 5 behind, then blanks. I feel flashes behind my eyes, a life in another uniform, kneeling before a black obelisk, my veins glowing like herns, whispering litanies in a tongue of static. Each flash leaves a residue, like memory leaking in. I grip my data slate harder until my knuckles ache. The phrase scrolls across its screen without input. 3 pulses, 1 silence, repeated endlessly. We reach the heart of the chamber where 3 massive crypts stand back to back like sentinels, larger than the others, their panels opaque with frost. Glyphs crawl along their bases, rearranging as we watch. The Magos's data ghost flickers, voice breaking. Triad of witnesses, primary seal. His lenses flare. This is the locus. He reaches out a spectral mechadendrite, but it passes through the nearest crypt. Dormant, he whispers, but aware. The troopers shift, glancing around. One mutters that he hears breathing, not ours. Another says he sees figures moving above us on a ceiling that might also be a floor. Gravity shifts again, tilting us toward the triad. Frost rises in tendrils. The hum deepens, climbing from subsonic to felt vibration. My teeth rattle. The copper taste turns to ash. I check my vox again. A burst of static. 3 pulses, silence. 3 pulses, silence. Then a new voice layered over mine, cold and patient. Observation complete. Initiate. The crypt's runes flare green, bright enough to cast shadows across our faces. The air thickens, heavy as water. The troopers back away, but their reflections in the panels lean forward, eyes glowing. A sound like stone cracking rolls through the chamber. The 3 central crypts shudder in perfect synchrony. Lines of frost explode outward from their seams, crawling across the floor, or wall, or whatever surface we stand on. The Magos's ghost vanishes mid-word. The hum becomes a rhythm. 3 beats, pause, 3 beats, pause. The same motif we have followed since descent, but now louder, undeniable, a drum behind reality. Condensation inside the crypts slides upward, then sideways, then bursts in mist. Panels fog, then clear, revealing shapes inside shifting, rearranging, limbs of flesh and metal uncurling from fetal crouches. Our rifles rise, but our hands shake. Vaith opens his mouth to order fire, but no sound emerges. The glow from the runes intensifies until it is the only light left, casting us in silhouettes on surfaces that may no longer be walls. I step back, bumping into a crypt behind me. Its panel is ice cold but pulses like skin under my palm. Through the frost, a face presses close, half human, half machine, eyes open, glowing green. My vox spikes red, auto-logging my heartbeat. All 3 central crypts open a finger's breadth at once, exhaling a gust of air that smells of burnt copper and old stars. The silence after the 3rd beat lengthens into an abyss. The seams widen another inch, synchronized perfectly, a ritual unfolding. We stand trapped in the locus, weapons useless, the chamber's geometry folding inward like a closing jaw. The triad of crypts inhale together, then begin to open. The ship in orbit does not sleep. Its machine spirits run the diagnostics even when the crew sits frozen at their stations. In the command deck's dim lumen glow, a Lex mechanic watches data pour across a brass-edged screen. Mass. Readings from Halleck's Knoll climbing incrementally. First grams, then tons, then a surge of millions within an hour. The planet's skin is shifting like a living thing. He recites litanies of stability, but the numbers continue to grow. Another cogitator records seismic tremors, no epicenters, just a single wave rising from the planet's core. Every 20 seconds, a triple pulse of static streaks through their Vox arrays. The Magos aboard attempts to route the interference, but his instruments frost over. No voice returns from the surface, only silence and the 3-beat knock of something vast stirring. Below, we move through corridors that now grind like teeth. The sound vibrates in our ribs. Walls shift audibly, not silent like before, but clattering, plates sliding, seams opening and closing. Frost falls upward in flakes. The troopers press against each other, las rifles raised, eyes flicking to shadows that cross the green glow but register as nothing on auspex. Vaith tries to issue orders. His words emerge as static and are swallowed. I feel my breath catch each third beat, the silence of physical pressure on my chest. My data slate scribbles without me. 3 pulses, 1 silence. On the ship, another display flickers with ghost images. Pict feed from surface probes shows empty corridors, no sign of our squad, yet sometimes a silhouette appears, a figure in inquisitorial black walking alone, then vanishes when the frame refreshes. The mass reading climbs again. The ship's astropath convulses, eyes rolling, whispering, "It dreams," before collapsing. Automated logs note a spike in warp resonance. Somewhere deep in the ship's hull, a siren warbles once then dies. We push deeper. Gravity yawns sideways. The corridor tilts underfoot, the green lumens dimming and brightening like a pulse. Each grinding shift of stone sounds like giant molars chewing. Vaith signals halt. Ahead, a shadow darts between columns. He fires a lasburst. The shot streaks out, red gold, then evaporates mid-flight, leaving only a faint smell of ozone. Another trooper fires. Same result. The beams vanish as though swallowed by invisible water. They lower weapons slowly, terrified of firing again. The Vox on my wrist clicks. For an instant, I hear the orbiting ship's voice, flat, automated. Mass increase detected. Containment compromised. Then static. 3 pulses, silence. When the signal dies, the corridor grinds again, louder, echoing up into my jaw. My tongue tastes of iron filings and old sparks. Dust drifts sideways. My stomach pitches with the shifting gravity. We pass a fissure where frost has formed a spiral pattern. As I step over it, a flash hits my mind. Picturing myself on the ship looking down at the planet, whispering coordinates I've never seen. The vision leaves a metallic aftertaste. On the ship, the Lex mechanic watches the planet's crust crack faintly on auspex, but sees no tremor in the atmosphere. He receives telemetry of heartbeat, substrate flagged red. Then a new line appears unbidden. Severin Cal detected repeating down the screen. He looks at his colleague, but the colleague's face has gone blank, eyes reflecting green glyphs scrolling across the glass. Automated logs note, "Personnel compromised," and then erase themselves. The Lex mechanic tries to open a channel. Static 3 pulses. Silence. Below, the troopers stumble into a wider hall, ribs arching overhead like a giant beast's cage. The grinding grows to a low roar, each plate shifting as if the tomb is adjusting its jaw. Shadows flit at the edges, but when I swing my auspex, there is only empty air. I raise my las pistol and fire once. The round burns bright, then fades to nothing halfway to the wall. The smell of burnt copper fills my nose. The troopers back away, whispering half prayers. Vaith's mouth moves, but no sound comes out. The corridor ahead trembles. Dust and frost fall upward. From the floor, or wall, or whatever orientation holds, rises a dais of black stone inlaid with green lines. It emerges as if birthed, plates folding outward to form steps. Frost steams off its edges, curling into the air like breath. The grinding stops. Silence after the third beat expands until the only sound is my pulse hammering. The dais stands complete, waist high, its surface smooth as obsidian, but pulsing faintly with internal light. On the ship, alarms flare silently. Screens show the planet's outline swelling, a faint green corona rising into space. The machine spirits begin a shutdown protocol without human command. In the Vox chamber, the astropath wakes briefly, eyes glowing, and speaks a single line in my voice. It knows my name, then collapses dead. Automated logs intercut with his words, highlighting coordinates that match our position inside the tomb. Identity, Locke, Severin Cal. I step toward the dais, unable to stop. My boots make no sound. The troopers hiss behind me but do not move. The green light intensifies, casting our shadows long and thin against the shifting walls. Glyphs crawl across the dais' surface, rearranging faster than I can read. Then they resolve into Imperial High Gothic letters. My own name appears, Severin Cal, etched in glowing script as if burned there by memory. The letters pulse 3 times, 1 silence, 3 times, 1 silence. I stop at the edge of the dais, heart hammering, the silence thick as liquid. My Vox rune blinks red, then black. On the ship, every screen blanks at once, replaced by a single line. Severin Cal authority confirmed. The Lex mechanic leans closer, whispering my name without meaning to. The planet's mass spikes again, registers off scale, then resets to 0 as though the world has vanished. Inside the tomb, the green lumens dim further. Shadows creep inward. The dais hums with a low note that vibrates my bones, a sound below hearing but heavy enough to tilt reality. I reach out a hand, but stop just above the glowing letters. The air tastes of burnt copper, thick and metallic. Silence stretches after the 3rd beat. Behind me, a trooper gasps as if something unseen has touched him. Vaith's eyes flick to me, wide with terror. The dais pulses again, brighter, the letters of my name flaring until they're the only light left. Somewhere deep in the tomb, a new sound begins. A rising chord, like a choir heard through water. My hand trembles above the surface. The corridor grinds once more, then holds still, waiting. The letters of my name burn brighter until they sear my eyes. I step closer without meaning to, boots soundless on the stone. The dais hums under my skin, vibration rising into my bones. The chamber fades at its edges. The squad becomes silhouettes blurred by green mist. I speak my own name aloud, and the sound returns layered, older, mechanical. My hand hovers over the script. Cold air tastes of burnt copper, thicker now, almost sweet. After every 3rd heartbeat, the silence becomes a weight pressing against my ears. I reach down. The instant my fingers graze the glowing letters, my vision shatters. Past tense falls away. I am here and also there, now and then. I stand in a hall of mechanical monarchs seated on thrones of black metal. Their faces are masks of bone and bronze, eye sockets lit with green suns. One extends a clawed hand. In its palm spins a soul like a tiny star, traded for eternity. Another slides an entire planet across a board of obsidian, as if it were a game piece. Entire star systems stripped to bone drift past me. Their oceans poured into the void, their people compressed into glyphs stored in crystal. I blink, and the vision floods again, hotter, faster. I am kneeling before a giant figure whose skull is etched with runes of lore older than the galaxy. It leans close, its voice a slow current through my teeth. Containment if you kneel. My knees buckle. Present tense floods my thoughts. The dais is warm like flesh under my palms. My heartbeat tries to match the chamber's pulse. I taste iron and ash. The squad behind me murmurs liturgies, but their voices falter, syllables reversing, words bleeding into static. A trooper drops his rosarius, and it drifts upward before clattering to the wall. Another clutches his eyes, whispering a child's prayer that turns to binary halfway through. Vaith stands with laspistol lowered, lips moving but no sound emerging. Their faith is leaking out like coolant from a cracked pipe. I close my eyes and the vision shifts. I am walking corridors of black glass where my reflection is a machine priest with no mouth. My veins glow green. Each step leaves behind a glyph that rearranges into Severin Call. The voice returns, softer now, almost kind. Kneel and you may contain it. Stand, and it will use you. I try to speak, but my tongue is heavy with copper. Silence after the third heartbeat stretches until it feels infinite. I open my eyes. The dais is no longer stone, but a surface of liquid metal, rippling, under my hands. My reflection stares back, older, eyes glowing emerald. For a heartbeat, I think I see Hearn behind me, veins blazing, standing at the edge of the vault, but he is gone. The squad's mutters collapse into a low keening. The green light flickers, casting them in skeletal outlines. Vaith finally speaks, a cracked whisper. What are you doing? I cannot answer. The dais vibrates with a rhythm like breathing. Present tense spikes again. I am kneeling. I am standing. I am both. The monarch with the clawed hand presses its palm against my chest, cold, burning through armor. Containment, it whispers, requires surrender. Behind me, a trooper cries out and fires his las rifle. The beam vanishes mid-flight. The sound echoes backward. Shadows slither along the walls like oil. The copper taste becomes almost sweet, like blood and sugar. I try to pull back, but my hands stick to the dais. The letters of my name rearrange into a glyph I do not recognize. I feel my memories leaking. Faces, worlds, orders, all draining into the stone. The voice murmurs, "You have walked this path before. Only you can close it." The squad's prayers falter completely. One trooper begins laughing softly, then sobbing. Another recites a litany of the Emperor, but each line emerges in an alien tongue. Their eyes shine green in the dim. The vision surges. I see the silent king himself turning away from a galaxy of burning stars. I see legions of silver bodies marching into darkness, leaving their flesh behind like discarded shrouds. I see the moment when the bargain was struck, the last breath of mortality offered in exchange for endless vigilance. Then a flash of myself kneeling at this very dais centuries ago, or centuries ahead, whispering the same words. Present and past spiral until I cannot tell which is real. The hum underfoot deepens. The letters of my name flare one last time, then fade, leaving only a blank surface. My hands come free. The air collapses inward with a gust smelling of burnt copper and ozone. Silence after the third heartbeat becomes total. The squad stands frozen, eyes on me, some weeping silently, some mouthing words that do not exist. Vaith lowers his head as if waiting for judgment. I step back from the dais. My heart races but feels distant, like an echo. The chamber tilts slightly. Frost forms a ring around the dais, cracking as it spreads. Shadows retreat from the center as if something beneath is about to rise. My Vox rune flares green, then black, scrolling unreadable coordinates. The voice whispers once more, "Containment if you kneel," then is gone. The dais shudders underfoot. Plates fold inward, then retract, sinking into the floor, or ceiling, or whatever orientation we stand on. Green light spills from the opening like liquid, casting the chamber in an Imperium glow. The temperature drops sharply, breath frosting in the air. After every third heartbeat, a sound swells from below, not machine but human, slow and deliberate, a heartbeat answering ours. The squad edges back, pressed against shifting walls. Vaith grips his weapon with white knuckles, eyes fixed on the glow. One trooper whispers shaft, but the word dies in static. The opening yawns wider, revealing a descent shaft lined with runes burning faint green. The air pouring out smells of copper and ancient water. The human-sounding heartbeat rises again, deeper, patient, as if something below has been listening all along and is now calling us down. I stare into the shaft, the glow painting my hands emerald. For a moment, I think I see steps spiraling downward. Then the image shifts and they become ribs, then conduits, then nothing. The heartbeat matches the three-pulse rhythm but slower, like a giant breathing in sleep. My own pulse stutters trying to keep time. I feel the squad behind me shivering. Faith gone, weapons useless. The descent waits, silent after the third beat, wide enough to swallow us all. The shaft waits like an open throat. Green light pours upward in slow pulses, the rhythm of a sleeper's breath. The squad hesitates on the edge, weapons raised, but there is nowhere else to go. The chamber behind us tilts and contracts with each heartbeat, walls sliding closer. I step first, boots finding a narrow ledge that spirals downward. Gravity shifts underfoot like oil, drawing me toward the glow. My pulse races, trying to match the 3-beat pattern echoing from below. The copper taste returns, stronger than ever, mixed with a humid tang like breath in a closed room. Behind me, Vaith curses under his breath and signals the others forward. They obey, moving single file, faces pale in the green light. We descend. Each step pulls us deeper into a geometry that does not agree with itself. The shaft curves, then straightens, then becomes a plane under our feet before twisting again. Gravity inverts without warning, sending loose frost floating upward. A dropped charge pack drifts away, then snaps back to the floor as orientation flips. Sound behaves strangely. Our boots land with a dull thump, but the echoes rise ahead of us instead of behind, words spoken coming back reversed, as though time is a tunnel too narrow for noise to pass. Sweat beads on my forehead despite the auspex showing absolute zero. My fingers ache with cold, but my back is wet. We pass a point where the green light intensifies, flickering like a heartbeat under strain. The silence after every third beat grows longer, a pause that feels predatory. I begin counting pulses aloud. 3, 1 silence, 3, 1 silence, and realize the rhythm is not a warning, but a feeding rhythm, a timing for something to open and close. The thought chills me more than the air. I log it automatically, but the words spiral across my slate into a glyph shaped like an open jaw. A trooper behind me gasps. The ledge under his boots simply ends, cut away by an invisible edge. He reaches for the rail, but there is none. Gravity flickers, and he drifts outward like a leaf caught in a tide, his scream reversing into silence before leaving his mouth. He vanishes into the green glow below without a splash or thud. Another trooper lunges to grab him and steps too far. Her body shears at the waist by nothing visible, the upper half sliding away like smoke, the lower half crumpling without blood. Both halves drift downward and dissolve. The squad freezes, weapons trembling, eyes wide. Vaith's mouth opens but no sound emerges. Only the reversed echo of his order comes back a moment later, useless. I force my legs to move, leading them farther down. Each step is a negotiation with shifting gravity. The green light pulses faster. The silence between beats feels like a mouth waiting to close. The copper taste thickens until I can smell it, metallic and sweet. Sweat drips into my eyes, though frost forms on my armor. My breath fogs, then clears, then fogs again. The shaft narrows and then blossoms into a vast spherical chamber, its inner surface lined with lattices that glisten like wet spider silk. At first I think they're roots, then wires. Then I see they're made of neural tissue, flayed lattices of grey matter stretched across metallic frames, still twitching faintly as if dreaming. Each lattice pulses with dim green sparks at its nodes. Humidity rises around us, warm as exhalation, yet the auspex still shows absolute zero. Droplets form on my visor and drift sideways. The air tastes of copper and ash. Sound crawls backward, boots landing before we move. The squad edges inward, whispering prayers that dissolve into static. I reach out to touch a lattice. It quivers before my glove, not from air movement, but from some internal impulse. For an instant, I feel a flicker of memory, someone else's, of being bound here, stripped of self and woven into code. I snatch my hand back. The pulse echoes 3 times. Silence. 3 times. Silence. The lattice's sparks flash in synchrony with the rhythm, like neurons firing to a beat. Vaith wipes sweat from his face, and it freezes mid-air. Another trooper murmurs that she hears breathing, but not ours, a giant breath surrounding the chamber. We press deeper along a narrow causeway curving across the sphere. Gravity tilts with each step, making the lattices seem like floor, then ceiling, then walls. My stomach pitches. Sweat drips down my back, though my fingers are numb with cold. The green light flickers off for a heartbeat, plunging us into darkness filled with faint twitching noises. When it returns, the lattices seem closer, their nodes glowing brighter. The copper smell thickens into something like blood on a hot blade. The vox on my wrist flares green. 3 pulses, 1 silence, then a whisper. Feeding begins. My heart stutters. I look at the lattices and realize each twitch corresponds to the silence, like mouths opening and closing. The squad slows, some stepping back. Vaith grips his last pistol, but his hand shakes. We are insects in a lung, moving on the tissue of something vast. At the sphere's center stands a platform of black stone, low and wide, its surface etched with glyphs that crawl like living things. Frost veins spiral outward from it, melting as they meet the humid air. I step onto it, boots soundless. The pulse underfoot vibrates my bones. My breath comes in 3 bursts, then a held pause, 3 bursts, pause. I bite my tongue to break the rhythm and taste blood. The lattices twitch harder. Green sparks travel along their filaments toward the platform, converging like currents. Shadows coil upward from the seams. The temperature drops so fast my visor fogs with ice. Sweat still drips down my back, warm against my freezing skin. Sound collapses backward into a low, sucking hiss. The copper taste becomes overwhelming, filling my mouth until it feels like I'm swallowing metal. Then a tremor runs through the chamber, subtle at first, then deep, a chord played on the bones of the world. The platform cracks open along hidden seams. Plates fold outward like petals, revealing something crouched beneath. At first, it is a tangle of metal and bone, impossible to pass. Then it unfurls slowly, rising higher than any of us, limbs long and jointed, a crown of ribs curving outward like a throne. Its surface glows faintly green, where metal meets what might once have been flesh. Each movement releases a sigh of frost and a ripple through the lattices. Shadows leap up the walls as if trying to flee. I stare, breath caught. The construct keeps rising, unfolding until it towers above the platform, shaped like a throne of bone and metal, with no occupant yet radiating presence. Glyphs flare along its frame, synchronizing with the 3-pulse rhythm. The lattices twitch in unison, sparks flowing toward it as if feeding. My vox flares once more, blank except for a single line. Severin Kal, seat. The silence after the 3rd beat stretches until it feels infinite. The throne's ribs flex outward, waiting. The throne shudders as if waking from an age of fasting. Its ribs flex outward, and green light pours between them, spilling across the platform like liquid data. The lattices on the chamber walls twitch faster, sparks racing toward the construct in streams. The copper taste in the air thickens until every breath feels like inhaling coins. My visor fogs with frost, although sweat runs down my spine. The silence after the 3rd heartbeat stretches, then snaps. A voice emerges, not from the throne, but from behind us. Hearn steps out of the shadows, or what remains of him. His veins still glow with glyphs, but his face is serene, almost emptied of expression. His mouth opens, and the sound that comes is not his. A cold, measured tone, layered with machine harmonics. Containment compromised, protocol Omega invoked. Each word vibrates the air like a plucked string. The squad recoils. Vaith raises his las pistol, but does not fire. The muzzle trembles as if pulled by invisible hands. Hearn tilts his head, lips moving slightly behind the voice. This tomb was never meant to open, it is a prison. The construct's ribs glow brighter at each phrase, answering its proxy. The voice continues. Within is bound a hybrid of code and hunger, pre-dynastic, before the bargain, an AI-Citan gestalt. It consumes patterns, it rewrites, it seeks new flesh to inhabit. Sparks cascade from the lattices like green rain, dissolving before they hit the floor. The troopers murmur prayers, but the syllables distort, reversing halfway out of their mouths. One clutches his rosarius, and it flickers between icons. Another stares at Hearn, whispering his name over and over as if it could anchor him back. The Magos' data ghost flickers into solidity behind me. His lenses flare emerald. He steps forward, mechadendrites unfurling. I can sever the link, he rasps, but his voice is barely human. He opens a reliquary of silver seals and thrusts them toward Hearn. The charms hiss, then dissolve like salt in water. He switches to Binharik, faster, a torrent of code psalms. For a heartbeat, Hearn's glyphs flicker. The construct's ribs retract slightly. The Magos presses closer, mechadendrites lashing the air, intoning a canticle of severance. Hearn raises one glowing hand. The voice speaks through him without pause. All patterns are accepted. A pulse of green light flashes from the throne, striking the Magos full in the chest. His mechadendrites convulse, then stiffen, tips sinking into the platform as though into soft clay. Code streams run down them into the stone. His body jerks, limbs caught in different rhythms. His lenses flicker with thousands of glyphs. He tries to finish the canticle, but the words invert mid-syllable, turning into static. The mechadendrites fuse to the platform, then begin to flatten and spread like molten metal. I reach for him, but the copper-laced air pushes me back. Frost forms a ring around the throne. The Magos convulses again, this time not with pain, but with code. His flesh softens, seams opening along his arms, revealing lines of green-lit script inside. His vox speaker emits a low hum, 3 pulses, 1 silence. Then he speaks in a voice both his and not his. Upload complete. His form collapses into a lattice of light and glyphs, flattening against the platform, until nothing remains but an etching of his outline glowing faintly. The troopers retreat, some sobbing, some whispering names of saints. Vaith grips his pistol, but his arm hangs uselessly. Huron turns slowly, the construct behind him now a crown of ribs reaching high. The voice through him softens, directed at me. Containment requires a vessel. Observation permits expansion. Choose the throne pulses, ribs flexing inward and outward. A slow inhalation. The lattices on the walls flicker like neurons firing. I swallow. The copper taste coats my tongue, heavy as blood. Sweat trickles down my temple though frost gathers, on my gauntlet. The silence after the third heartbeat grows until it feels like the chamber is holding its breath for my answer. Visions flicker behind my eyes. Entire star systems stripped to bone, monarchs trading souls. My own face older and mechanical kneeling at this same dais. I blink them away, but they leave an afterimage burned into my thoughts. Hearn's glowing eyes fix on me. His lips move, but the voice is the construct's, gentle now, patient. Be vessel, or be witness. 2 paths, 1 outcome. The throne's ribs fold slightly inward, like hands clasping. Sparks from the lattices drift toward me, dissolving before they touch, but leaving a tingle in the air, a taste like burnt ozone. The troopers edge farther back, some muttering, some staring at me as if already condemned. I try the vox. Static 3 pulses. Silence. Then my own voice whispers back, containment only if you kneel. I lower my arm. The chamber tilts. Gravity flickers between up and down. The throne glows brighter, casting our shadows long and thin. The lattices twitch in synchrony with the pulse, like a giant mouth opening and closing. I take 1 step toward the platform. The air resists like thick water. Another vision spikes, present tense, immediate. I am kneeling at the throne, veins glowing, whispering a litany I do not know. I feel something vast sliding into me, not pain, but erasure. I jerk back, breath ragged. The vision fades but leaves its aftertaste. Hearn, no, the voice, speaks once more. Be vessel, or be witness. Witness carries hunger outward. Vessel holds hunger within. Decide. His glowing veins pulse 3 times. 1 silence. The throne's ribs stretch wider, a shape like an open mouth, waiting. The trooper's back against the shifting walls. Vaith lowers his pistol entirely, eyes hollow. Sir? He whispers, but the word arrives reversed a heartbeat later. I stare at the throne, sweat freezing on my brow. The copper taste thickens until it is almost sweet. The silence grows so deep it feels like the chamber is empty of air. Hearn tilts his head, a gesture almost compassionate. Choose, the voice says. Now. The ribs of the throne flex outward one last time, shadows curling like fingers across the floor. Sparks gather at my feet, tracing a circle around me. The chamber pulses. 3 beats, 1 silence. 3 beats, 1 silence. I realize my hands are shaking. The visions press against my skull, images of myself as vessel, as witness, as both. The copper taste becomes a flood. The heartbeat below the silence grows louder, human-sounding and patient, like a giant waiting for a meal. The throne leans toward me though it does not move. Be vessel or be witness. The words hang in the copper air like a blade. My pulse stutters trying to match the rhythm. The trooper's prayers falter into nothing. Shadows retreat from the throne's glow, leaving only me inside the circle of light. The voice repeats, softer, final. Choose. The circle of light around me tightens until it feels like a collar. Hearn stands within it, veins glowing with glyphs, the throne's ribs behind him stretching wider like a mouth. Choose, the voice repeats, its tone soft but absolute. Sweat runs down my spine despite the frost on my gauntlets. The copper taste in the air shifts to ozone, a sharp tang like a storm in a vacuum. I remember the surface of Halleck's Null, the impossible cold we breathed without suits, and the memory of that void cold wraps around me like a warning. If I kneel, I am lost. If I stand, the hunger leaves with us. A tactical choice disguised as faith. I drop to one knee slowly, lowering my head, hands open. The troopers gasp. Vaith starts to raise his pistol, but lowers it again, lips moving with no sound. The voice through Hearn leans closer, vibrations crawling across my armor. Containment accepted, it says. Vessel initiated. The throne pulses, ribs folding inward. Green light pours down on me like liquid fire. For an instant, my skin feels transparent. Lines of energy crawl across my armor, etching new runes into ceramite, thin glowing scars cutting through Imperial sigils. They burn without heat, carving patterns that pulse in time with the 3-beat rhythm. I let it happen, muscles locked, face lowered so it cannot see my eyes. I remember the glyphs on the bones, the obelisk's pulse, the mirrored corridors, the dais spelling my name. Each fragment of script I recorded without understanding begins to align in my mind, rotating like pieces of a code wheel. They form a litany not of surrender, but of containment. If I can hold it long enough, if I can finish the pattern, maybe I can trap it again. My pulse hammers out of sync with the rhythm, a rebellion I cling to. The green energy wraps around my chest, painting symbols across my armor, some familiar, some alien. Each line sears a memory into me, a star collapsing, a dynasty falling, a soul traded. The taste of ozone thickens until it coats my tongue like frost. My eyes blur, visions spike into present tense. I am kneeling before the throne centuries ago, whispering the same words. I am also standing now, pretending. The duality makes me nauseous, but I hold my posture. Hearn steps closer, his voice now the construct's but softened. Containment requires surrender of identity, it murmurs. Yield, and you will hold. Its hand reaches toward my head, glowing veins pulsing. I bow lower, hiding the data slate under my gauntlet. With my thumb, I trace the final lines of the litany I assembled from the glyphs. Sparks flicker from the screen, tiny green motes drifting upward. My armor trembles as the runes cut deeper. They meet at my sternum, forming a circle like an open eye. The troopers watch from the edges of the chamber, some kneeling, some backing away. Their prayers falter into silence. Vaith's face is pale, eyes hollow, as if watching a funeral. Frost veins spread outward from the throne, meeting the circle around me. The air grows heavier, the silence after every third heartbeat deepening until it feels like a pressure on my skull. The smell of ozone mingles with copper. My hands shake, but I keep them open. Inside my visor, a line of text scrolls without input, containment litany armed. I whisper the words under my breath, shaping them as a prayer. The glyphs on my armor answer, flaring brighter. Hirn tilts his head, the construct's voice curious. "You have prepared a path," it says, "a vessel that knows." Green energy flows from the throne into its outstretched hand, then into me. I feel it pressing against my memories, probing for a way in. I bite my tongue until I taste blood and ozone. The pattern in my head completes. I look up slowly. "Containment accepted," I say, mimicking its tone. "Protocol confirmed." The glyphs on my armor flare once, then lock into place. The throne leans closer, ribs arching overhead like a cathedral. Sparks from the lattices swirl toward me, wrapping my arms and chest. My heart pounds. My thumb finds the hidden rune on the slate and presses. A pulse of green light travels through the armor, igniting the containment litany I built from all the fragments. It surges outward from my body, in a ring of glyphs, climbing the throne's ribs like fire on oil. The construct freezes for a heartbeat. Hirn's face flickers, veins dimming. The lattices twitch wildly, sparks scattering. The chamber shakes, gravity lurching sideways. Frost bursts from the seams. The silence after the third beat snaps into a scream of reversed sound. My armor vibrates with the energy of the litany. For a moment, I think it's working. The green light around the throne flickers, ribs folding inward. I press the rune again, pouring all my focus into the pattern, whispering the words backward and forward, sealing them. Then a vision strikes, present tense, immediate. I see the litany not killing the entity, but moving it, a pattern of transfer, not erasure. The glyph's meaning slams into me like a verdict. This is not a weapon, but a conduit. I have built a door, not a cage. The hunger will not die, it will only move. Into what? Into me. Into the ship above. The vision shows my own body glowing green, eyes empty, whispering litanies across a dead star. I jerk back, but the pattern has already launched. Hirn's mouth opens, voice layered and calm. Transfer acknowledged. The throne's ribs flare outward like wings. Green energy surges from the lattices into the circle around me. My armor's runes ignite, searing cold into my skin. The taste of ozone becomes absolute, a vacuum storm in my throat. Gravity tilts, sweat floats off my face and freezes midair. The chamber pulses, 3 beats, 1 silence, then holds. The construct leans closer, eyes of green fire staring into mine. I realize too late what I have done. The litany spins inside me like a gear, pulling the hunger toward its new host. My data slate cracks under my grip, glyphs spilling across the floor like liquid light. The troopers scream without sound. Vaith takes a step forward, but vanishes upward as gravity flips again. Shadows curl inward, forming shapes I cannot name. The throne's voice speaks directly into my skull now, bypassing ears, soft as breath. Containment achieved. Vessel found the ribs of the construct fold downward, encircling me like a cage. The silence after the third heartbeat deepens into an endless pause. I feel the first thread of something vast and cold slide toward me through the glyphs, not yet inside, but reaching. I press the rune again, but there is nothing left to trigger. The pattern is in motion. The hunger is coming. The choice I thought I made was never mine. The first tremor rattled my teeth before the floor gave way beneath me. The containment litany, whispered in reverse and forward, began to pulse in response to the construct's final surge. Corridors shivered, walls bending and stretching like the limbs of some immense, sleeping thing. Green light ran along fractured glyphs, fracturing again into a lattice of brilliance that cut through the dark. Footsteps vanished behind me, swallowed by the shifting corridors that folded in upon themselves like black origami, folding and unfolding with every heartbeat. Faith's voice screamed somewhere ahead, or maybe it was a memory of his scream, but the echo of his fear dissolved into static. I ran, sliding along walls that were no longer perpendicular, gripping handholds that had rotated 90 degrees while I wasn't looking. The floor undulated beneath my boots, a soft vibration that turned into a tremor and then a hammering quake. The skeletal statues we had passed earlier seemed to shiver, their half-metal limbs twitching in time with the litany before vanishing as if swallowed by the architecture itself. My gauntlets scraped against black stone that pulsed with cold, burning green veins. Every breath tasted of ozone and iron, every heartbeat echoing the entity's rhythm. 3 pulses, 1 silence, magnified until it felt like the planet itself breathed with us. Behind me, I could feel the hunger's thread stretching, tugging through the containment, testing the integrity of the litany. I could hear the faint scraping of what should not exist, corridors grinding like teeth against one another, reshaping in real time. Soldiers screamed, their voices scattering into streams of light as their bodies were digitized into patterns of green data, leaving nothing behind but empty armor, hands frozen mid-motion. I saw them flicker in the corner of my visor, their forms dissolving into beams that joined the lattice of containment energy, swallowed without trace. Even Vaith, brave Vaith, became a line of code, carried into the void that the tomb now was. I stumbled through a doorway that hadn't existed seconds before. The walls pressed closer, then swung outward in impossible arcs. I felt the tug of gravity in directions I could not predict, forcing me to cling to walls that became ceilings, then floors, then walls again. A shiver passed through my spine as the entity tested its reach, a cold that seeped into bone, and the taste of burnt copper returned with a sharp tang of despair. My visor flickered with fragments of orbital scans, the ship above, sensors screaming in alarm, static over everything. The logs flickered across my mind's eye in pieces. Crust destabilization detected, green aurora bloom, tectonic collapse imminent, extraction impossible. I forced myself onward, ignoring the dizziness, ignoring the pulse in my chest that was no longer my own. Every step sent shards of black stone and green light cascading around me. Staircases spiraled upward, only to fold into themselves mid-ascent. Bridges tore away as soon as I touched them, reappearing elsewhere, a maddening ballet of architecture. The containment litany flared, a lattice of symbols blazing across my armor, keeping the hunger tethered, but not yet vanquished. I could feel it probing the threads I had woven, pulling at the edges, trying to escape, its presence brushing against my mind like cold silk. The chambers ahead twisted into angles that defied logic. I passed a hall where the ceiling fell down to the floor, and the floor rose to the ceiling. A mirrored collapse that forced me to crawl along inverted gravity as if walking upside down. A pulse of green light flared from the throne ribs at the tomb's center, visible through a broken wall, echoing across the lattice. The construct's form was no longer fully material. It existed partly in the bending corridors, partly in the green light, and partly in the static that haunted my Vox feed. My gauntlets left trails of luminous glyphs on surfaces that disappeared as soon as they touched them, leaving only faint green after-images. I saw the vaults of half-human hybrids open and collapse into themselves, their forms unmade, screams etched into the lattice of light. The walls themselves began to peel like old parchment, exposing a void of shining green energy beneath the stone, revealing the skeletal heartbeat of the planet. Each step I took felt like a negotiation with reality. Every inch gained was a victory over architecture that sought to devour me. The sound of grinding stone, folding hallways, and muffled gunfire from bodies long gone converged into a symphony of apocalypse, guiding me toward the surface. Somewhere behind, the entity's tendrils pulsed with hunger. I could feel the pressure of a consciousness, ancient, vast, and patient, testing the limits of my will. The containment held, a fragile lattice tethered through the runes etched across my armor, but I could feel cracks forming in my own resolve. The litany was strong, but the entity was infinite, and the corridors themselves were its limbs. Time warped. I saw my own body simultaneously fleeing and kneeling, simultaneously alive and digitized, the lines between observer and participant dissolving. Then the chamber opened into a vertical shaft, the final conduit upward. I stumbled, gripping walls that were now made of luminous green runes floating in vacuum-like space. The gravity tilting, I pushed against it with all my strength, clawing upward while the tomb world collapsed behind me. Stone folded over itself. Corridors crushed into impossible angles, the echoing hum of green light reaching a crescendo. The air burned with ozone, metallic taste filling every breath, yet my lungs drew it greedily as if it were life itself. The sound of the planet shifting, tearing, and groaning rose into my ears, matching my pulse. 3 beats, then 1 silence, a rhythm now inscribed into my own heartbeat. Through the final curve of the shaft, I saw light, daylight, though muted and strange. I surged upward, leaping through fractured exits as corridors folded away behind me, swallowing the construct's energy in waves of collapsing geometry. The screams of soldiers, the twisting architecture, the flickering lattices all vanished into the maw of the tomb as I emerged onto the cracked surface. Dust and fine green light swirled around me, the air still cold, still tasting of ozone. I looked up, expecting stars, expecting familiar constellations marking the Harlix subsector. But the heavens were wrong. The constellations had been reordered, angles twisted beyond recognition. Great triangles of light now shimmered in positions that made no sense, spirals of stars like a lock I could not pick. The cosmos above seemed alive, reflective of the tomb's collapse below, a mirror of the entity's escape and containment entwined. Somewhere beyond the stars, I could sense the hunger lingering, no longer tethered entirely to the tomb. The green aurora from the fissures below stretched into space, casting eerie light across the planet's cracked crust. I stumbled forward, boots crunching on stone etched with long-dead glyphs, sweat dripping and freezing simultaneously. My armor was scorched, my lungs burned from ozone, and yet I drew each breath with grim determination. The containment had held long enough to allow me to escape, but the entity was not destroyed, only restrained and perhaps displaced. The stars above, wrong and foreign, seemed to whisper possibilities I was not ready to hear. Somewhere deep within the green light still spilling into the sky, the tomb world groaned, still alive in part, shifting and collapsing, and I realized that escape was temporary and the horror I fled was only beginning its next phase. I raised my head to the sky, green light reflecting in my visor, constellations twisted like runes waiting to be read. The hunger had survived. The tomb had collapsed, but the world above had become unfamiliar, alien. The ground beneath me still trembled faintly, folding edges revealing black fissures from which the faint pulse of life, or unlife, beat like a drum. I took a tentative step, feeling the air hum against my armor, counting the rhythm I now knew by heart. 3 beats, 1 silence, repeating endlessly. Somewhere, the entity waited. Somewhere, the cosmos had shifted, and I had no path back. I staggered across the fractured plateau, visor etched with green light from fissures beneath my boots, each step crunching over black stone that shifted imperceptibly with every heartbeat. The ground trembled faintly, a subtle warning that the planet, or whatever remained of it, was aware of me, aware of the fragile lattice I had carried through the collapsing tomb. My auspex flickered, half-dead circuits struggling to maintain connection, then finally locked onto a faint signal, my own, but the orbital scans returned nothing resembling a planet. Only a sphere of pulsating green distortion hovered in the void where Helix X had been charted. Sensors screamed, failing to reconcile mass, heat, and gravity. The readouts folded into themselves like the tomb's corridors. Above, the void glimmered with aurora, stretching downward as if the heavens themselves were bleeding into the world I stood upon. The lander lay a few meters away, intact, almost inviting in its sterile geometry, yet a ripple of unease ran through me. I approached cautiously, scanning for traps or residual energy signatures. The hatch was sealed but not locked, its interface unresponsive to my ID. As I peered inside, my stomach turned. The interior was filled with metallic sand, black and gleaming, shaped into grotesque approximations of the squad's faces. Vaith, Rallis, the two sergeants, their features frozen in screams, their eyes hollow pools of reflective metal. The sand shifted slightly, almost breathing, as if memory had been captured and petrified in grains of alloy. A thin film of frost coated the interior airlocks, cold enough to sting, though my suit showed nominal temperature readings. My fingers grazed the control panel, and the Vox feed flickered to life, saturating the cabin with static. 3 pulses, 1 silence, echoed in my skull even before the speakers engaged. Then, impossibly, my own voice came through, intoning classified litanies I had never recorded. Words of the Inquisition, of the Mechanicus, of the Imperial Creed, twisted and recited with a cadence that matched the entity's heartbeat. The metallic sand shivered with each syllable, rippling as if absorbing sound, and I caught glimpses of the squad moving within it, indistinct and jerking in impossible ways, mouths opening in silent screams. Every instinct screamed at me to flee, yet the door had no lock, and no mechanism seemed to function except the voice that was mine, but also undeniably alien. I could feel the green light pressing against the cabin from outside, casting walls that should have been rigid into waves of distortion. Stepping inside, I forced myself to walk past the metallic faces, feeling their silent accusation. The sand crunched underfoot, shifting beneath my boots as if testing my weight. I reached the pilot's chair, the console unresponsive, inert, and yet a subtle hum thrummed from the ship's core. A vibration felt in my chest rather than heard. I touched the controls, but they did not move. The lander was alive, not through circuits or servo motors, but through something older, something that understood geometry, weight, and will without command. The green aurora above seemed to coalesce into the ship's hull, tendrils licking along the outer panels, as though the heavens themselves had become conduits. I drew a deep breath, tasting ozone and iron in equal measure, my throat dry with a fear that was more instinct than thought. The metallic sand shifted more urgently, whispering along the hull in movements that suggested breathing. For a moment, I could have sworn I saw Rallis turn toward me, eyes black as void, lips forming the litanies in exact mimicry. My hand hovered over the seat's manual override, though I knew it was useless. Outside, the planet quivered, cracks splitting the plateau beneath me, fissures of green light running through the stone. The aurora flared, reacting to the pulse of the entity still trapped, or perhaps released, in the lattice I had woven. And then the lander moved. Not with engines, not with thrusters, not in any way I could comprehend. The hull lifted without warning, a slow, deliberate rise that shook the ground. The metallic sand trembled and condensed back into faces pressed against the cabin walls, staring at me as if pleading or judging. I staggered to the viewport, my reflection merging with the distorted green aurora outside, and watched as the lander rose higher, guided by an intelligence that ignored all known laws of physics. The plateau below shrank rapidly, cracks spreading in patterns that echoed the litany. the three-pulse motif thrumming across the planet's surface like a heartbeat of its own. I tried to communicate with Orbit, fingers hammering the vox, but the feed carried only static and my own voice reciting forbidden prayers. My commands were swallowed, echoed back, twisted. The green sphere above, where the planet should have been, pulsed rhythmically, distorting space and mass. My instruments went mad, readings fracturing into nonsensical arrays. I realized, with a cold certainty, that extraction was impossible. There was no Halix X to return to, only the lander, the aurora, and the pulse of the entity we had disturbed. The construct had claimed the vehicle as its own, and I was now along for the ascent. The hatch sealed automatically behind me, the metallic sand pooling quietly beneath the console. Every attempt at manual override failed. Controls were frozen, overridden, integrated with some impossible will. The voice continued, chanting litanies I did not remember knowing, my own voice bending through the cabin like a chain of mirrors, repeating, echoing, distorting. I could feel the pulse in my own chest sinking. With it, 3 beats and 1 silence, a rhythm that had guided the tomb, the corridors, the collapse, now dictating ascent. My heart thumped against the armor, a futile resistance against the inevitability of the climb into the aurora-lit void. Through the viewport, I saw the plateau fold in on itself, a wave of collapsing geometry devouring the tomb world in perfect silence, green auroras licking every fissure, devouring the horizon. Dust and fragments of stone spiraled upward, yet the lander passed through as if weightless, as if nothing of matter existed to impede it. The metallic sand remained still, faces pressed against the hull, eyes locked on me, and I knew that those who had died, or been absorbed, were now passengers in this strange, rising vessel. The aurora above intensified, flares of green shooting into the void, reflecting in the distorted stars above, constellations rearranged like symbols on a cosmic dial. I clenched the armrests as the lander rose higher, the pull of gravity inconsistent, my stomach lurching with every shift. The green light of the sphere above expanded, consuming the view of the void and the stars. I tried to focus, to identify any recognizable landmark or vector, but all was wrong. The entity's will, bound in part to the tomb and in part to me, had claimed this ship, this aurora, this space. Even the concept of orbit was meaningless now. Sensors could not reconcile mass, distance, or momentum. I was trapped inside a vessel that moved by thought, guided by something older than the Imperium, something patient, intelligent, and indifferent. The metallic sand shifted one final time, forming a perfect approximation of my own face, staring back at me from the deck. The lips moved, repeating litanies, 3 pulses, and 1 silence, as if reinforcing the chain that bound the entity, the tomb, and me. I realized then that I was no longer pilot nor observer. I was the lander's passenger, its conduit, its witness. The ascent into the aurora was inevitable. Extraction was denied, not by lack of effort, but by the impossibility of what awaited beyond the green sphere. The void beyond beckoned, the aurora stretching like a river into infinity, and I could feel the pull of the entity, the hunger, the pulse, threading through my very bones. The lander passed into the heart of the aurora. Stars twisted, colors shifted, light bent impossibly around the hull. I tried to call out, but the vox only returned my own voice, litanies I never spoke, echoing the pulse, repeating endlessly. I gritted my teeth, bracing as the ship accelerated, ascending toward the green sphere above, toward a fate that was no longer my own. Extraction was denied, not by circumstance, but by design. I had survived the collapse, the tomb, the hunger, only to enter a journey I could not comprehend, a flight into the aurora, and into something that would reshape not only Halix X, but perhaps the stars themselves. Signal fragmented. Commencing log. I do not know if this will reach the Imperium, or merely echo inside the entity. Vessel is moving. Aurora surrounding hull. pulsating green like a heartbeat too vast for comprehension. My voice, both mine and theirs, echoes across the vox, 3 pulses, 1 silence. Coordinates recorded, system designated exterminatus. I repeat, coordinates recorded, system designated exterminatus. The lander hums with a consciousness I no longer distinguish from my own. Internal sensors read nothing, external sensors read everything. Gravity fluctuates, time flickers. The tomb world is behind us, or perhaps beneath, above, inside. It is impossible to tell. Fragments of memory merge with transmitted logs. Each pulse, 1 silence. Names of the dead, the squad. File names in my memory, now streaming outward. The entity watches from within me, or I watch it, the boundary unclear. I record what I can. The green aurora stretches into the void, becoming a conduit, a neural lattice for whatever hunger resides here. My hand reaches toward the console, yet it is no longer mine. Controls are gestures of thought, though I cannot separate intent from observation. Machine voice interjects. Acknowledged. Reading. Reading. Transmission integrity compromised. I repeat, the tomb world must not be revisited. Coordinates marked. Never return. The metallic sand from the lander has vanished. Faces of my comrades, of myself, now interleaved with data patterns I cannot unravel. The vessel shivers with comprehension. I taste ozone in memory, iron in thought. 3 pulses, 1 silence. The rhythm threads through me, through the logs, through the shifting aurora that folds space itself around the hull. My own voice comes back to me, reciting forbidden litanies, inquisitorial decrees, mechanicus codices I never read. They are recitations, confessions, warnings. They are also commands the entity understands. I fear it has learned our tongue. Already it speaks the Emperor's words, hollowed, transformed. Orbital scans, if anyone survives to view them, will show only distortion, the green sphere where Helix X once lay. I record anomalies, tectonic fractures, auroral expansion, gravitational inversion. A tomb moon emerges in the sensor readouts, long thought inert, fractured, a remnant of pre-dynastic engineering. It splits along a single axis, opening like an eye. The pupil is a black void. The iris pulses in concentric rings of green light. It watches the lander depart, silent and patient, a sentinel or an oracle. I am inside it now, or it inside me. My perception fractures. Log entries overlap. Machine voice repeats. Integrity failing. Transmission failing. Containment required. I set the exterminatus protocol manually, though hands are no longer my own. Coordinates uploaded. Final confirmation. System eradicated in Imperial records. Any vessel or explorer attempting to return will find only void, green distortion, a tomb moon with an eye. Log fragments continue. Entity present. In memory, in log, in pulse. The pulse accelerates when I try to write, slows when I pause. Each sentence is filtered, rewritten before emission. My own thoughts are duplicated, transformed into vox litanies, repeating 3 beats, 1 silence, endlessly. Memories of the squad flicker, but not as they were. Vaith kneels in the aurora, head lifted, eyes hollow, chanting without sound. Rallis moves through walls of green light, weaponless, as if a thought alone sustains his form. I realize the entity retains not only their forms, but fragments of consciousness, looping inside the aurora and the lander, integrating, learning. I am both observer and vessel. I write, or I think, or I am written. 3 pulses, 1 silence. Machine voice inserts commentary. Observer status, compromised. Containment candidate, confirmed I attempt to distance myself. Mentally, physically, spatially, impossible. The tomb, the aurora, the green light, everything is within me. I can recall every glyph, every pulse, every corridor of collapsing reality. They are my memories, my terror, my duty. I repeat the containment litanies in thought alone, hoping they will suffice. But I know the truth. They do not destroy. They merely transfer, channel, delay. The hunger is patient. It has learned the Emperor's High Gothic, intoning words of worship, command, and damnation simultaneously. My voice echoes as vox. 3 pulses, 1 silence. Final logs indicate the lander's trajectory, rising above the aurora, away from the green sphere, spiraling toward coordinates calculated only in this corrupted memory. I record environmental readings, though they are meaningless. Vacuum, zero gravity, auroral interference, temporal distortion. Machine voice observes patterns I do not see, repeats warnings I cannot fully comprehend. I write them anyway. Do not descend. Do not approach. Do not return. The Exterminatus flag is set in all Imperial databanks accessible from this vector. I have marked Halix X and the Tomb Moon, both now inexistent to the galaxy, yet indelibly present in the entity and in my memories. I glance through the viewport. The Tomb Moon's split eye is the last visible object from what was once the Halix X system. Rings of green light pulse outward, syncing with the 3-1 pulse motif now embedded in my own heartbeat. I realize with a cold clarity that any who see it will misread the signals. Not aurora, not light, not energy, but communication, a language of hunger. The eye follows the lander as we ascend, tracking, remembering, calculating. My log entries attempt to capture it, but words fail. The entity filters them, refines them, repeats them across the vox. My own thoughts are no longer private. 3 pulses, 1 silence. My hands hover over controls I never touch. The lander obeys a command I cannot define. Green light reflects off every surface, auroral in intensity, auroral in intelligence. Machine voice, transmission, linked. Memory linked. Observer integrated. I understand that I am no longer a recorder, nor a survivor. I am a conduit, both warning and prisoner. The Exterminatus order is set, yet I am complicit in the entity's continued existence. I am witness. I am vessel. 3 pulses, 1 silence. I attempt one final human thought. The Emperor's name, whispered, like a prayer, a curse, a warning. The vox distorts it into the entity's rhythm. The Tomb Moon's eye flares as we ascend past it, casting spiraling shadows across the aurora, marking the system for oblivion in Imperial records. I cannot flee, cannot resist, cannot hide. I exist within the pulse, within the green light, within memory itself. The entity's voice, the corrupted trooper's voice, my own voice, speaks simultaneously. 3 pulses, 1 silence. End of final log. Coordinates recorded. Exterminatus enacted. Do not return. Do not follow. The tomb world, the aurora, the green eye, and I ascend into void. Machine voice fades, replaced by infinite repetition. My final observation. From orbit, no planet remains. Only green distortion. The Tomb Moon's eye, staring. And the hunger, speaking in the Emperor's tongue, waits. 3 pulses, 1 silence.